Monster trucks have long been known as machines of destruction and carnage. They crush junk cars, smash old RVs, and demolish really anything in their path. But that's all changing. Nowadays, many monster truck events don't provide any vehicles for the trucks to demolish. Dilapidated cars and vans, junk school buses and RVs have been replaced with dirt jumps, concrete barriers, and rubber tires. So why did the monster truck industry leave behind the very thing that made it famous? It's a complicated question to answer, so let's dive in and talk about what happened to crush cars.
She's awful big in that truck, though.
I was going to say, in that truck. Oh my, she's going to that van!
Mechanical behemoths capable of crushing cars, trucks, or anything that gets in their way.
Let's first talk about the history of monster trucks crushing cars. It all started with the birth of monster trucks in 1981. This was the year Bob Chandler drove his Ford pickup truck named Bigfoot over 2 cars to promote his 4x4 shop. People took interest, and he was soon crushing cars for stadiums packed with spectators. It wasn't long before monster trucks began racing to see who could crush cars faster. Earlier monster truck races sometimes featured elements other than crushing cars, like a mud pit or sled pull. But at its heart, monster truck racing was all about smashing junk cars.
Look at him, just pulverize those cars.
Here we go.
Oh, be careful.
Up and over, look out! Oh my God!
As the industry was sprouting, Hollywood took notice. Movies like Cannonball Run 2 and Roadhouse used monster trucks to create iconic pieces of cinema and ingrained the demolishing ability of monster trucks in the public's mind. As monster truck technology advanced, the courses they raced on did too. By the 90s, monster truck racing wasn't so much about smashing cars as much as jumping over them. Sure, cars were being crushed, but flying high over the crushed cars was what got the most cheers.
Red Shaver with a bit of a hole shot. He comes off that first set of cars sideways.
Some horsepower, let's see. Oh my.
As the millennium turned, a new competition allowed monster trucks to smash and destroy like never before. Monster Truck Freestyle, a competition of who could be the most daring and destructive driver, took the industry over by storm.
Oh, he took the top off of it.
He smashed it to smithereens.
Oh, he's running with the demo derby cars at the other end. Oh, my. He's gone.
Now she's going to take on the semi, the first one. Hey!
Wow.
Over the next decade or so, monster trucks began crushing just about everything. Junk school buses, garbage trucks, limousines, shipping containers, ambulances, box vans, campers, fire trucks, massive pumpkins, the Disneyland monorail, other monster trucks, and even larger obstacles like full-sized airplanes, trailer homes, houses, and Section 116 of Sam Boyd Stadium. TV commercial slots showed monster trucks as masters of carnage, as did shows like Destroy Build Destroy and Extreme Makeover Home Edition.
Come on, truck, knock it down!
Towards the start of the 2010s, freestyle obstacles at some shows were becoming less about the crushed vehicles and more about dirt ramps that could propel the monster trucks high into the air.
Look at this crazy, sick air. Oh man. Oh my. Fred City walks it down.
Basic champion.
Oh man. Look at that. Unreal.
But crush cars were still a part of nearly every monster truck track, and everyone was still on board. As the 2010s progressed, the pattern of more dirt obstacles and less crushed cars continued. In late 2014, Monster Jam introduced the now iconic Arena Pod obstacle, made entirely from dirt, and in 2015, crushed cars were only in the corner of the track at most Monster Jam events. Monster Jam has always been the industry trendsetter, so it didn't take long before other tours followed suit. In early 2019, Monster Jam eliminated freestanding crushed cars from their courses entirely, leaving crushed car obstacles absent from arena events and scarce at stadium events. This was the beginning of the end for monster trucks crushing cars. Now in the mid-2020s, events with crushed car obstacles seem to be more rare than ones without. This has caused a flurry of criticism from monster truck fans who want to see monster trucks return to their car crushing roots. So what happened, and where did the crush cars go? To help me answer this, I contacted some monster truck promotion companies to see what they had to say on the matter. They're the ones who create monster truck courses, so I figured they're the experts on the topic. I reached out with this message to all of these tours, and 4 responded. With their comments, plus conversations I've had with other industry insiders in mind, let's get into it. The most cited reason that crush cars have disappeared is safety concerns, mainly for the audience and crew. In fact, most of the promoters who responded to me mentioned this as a main reason. One of these safety concerns is that a truck will launch a part of a vehicle off into the crowd and injure someone, creating a liability for the promoter, never mind the PR nightmare that would come with it. Monster trucks launch small parts from crush cars into the air all the time, and on rare occasion those pieces land in the crowd, although to my knowledge no one has ever been severely injured from this. People have been hurt and even killed at monster truck shows due to flying debris, and there's even law firms that deal with this, but the debris has always come from the truck, not the cars it's crushing. So why is this a concern now and not before? The junk vehicles crushed at monster truck events generally range from 10 to 25 years old. This means when the industry first sprouted in the 80s, most crushed cars were from the 60s and early 70s, whereas nowadays most crushed cars come from the late 90s to early 2010s. Over that time, the way vehicles are manufactured has changed significantly. Vehicles made in the mid-20th century were made mostly of durable metal parts, compared to modern vehicles which are made with a lot of plastic and otherwise flimsy parts. This is done, among other reasons, to lower vehicle weight, which gives better gas mileage. Plus, plastic parts are easier and cheaper to produce, ship, and replace. Getting back to monster trucks, when the mostly metal cars of the 20th century are hit by a monster truck, very little debris comes off of the vehicle since the parts are mostly bolted or welded together. When a monster truck hits a modern car, however, the plastic parts shatter and can be sent soaring through the air. This is especially a problem at venues where the audience is seated close to the track with no physical barrier in between, like at indoor arenas and many fairgrounds. At these venues, the promoter has to carefully place crush car obstacles to ensure the crowd remains safe throughout the show. Another issue with loose car parts is they litter the course throughout the show, which is a problem for agricultural and rodeo facilities. If not cleaned up properly, those small parts can injure animals or personnel that use the dirt at following events. And aside from injury and liability issues, many venues simply don't want their dirt contaminated with small parts, glass, and fluids that come off of crushed cars.
When we strike a relationship with a venue, one of the first questions we ask is, we understand rodeo keeps your lights on. Would you trust us or allow us to try cars in this arena? And that really is it's a clear-cut yes or no. It never really goes to table, right? Everybody has their stance on it.
Venues have the right to deny car crushing in their facility, and the promoter has to work with that. This is most common with agricultural and rodeo arenas, but has happened at speedways and fairgrounds too. And at venues that do allow crushed cars, those parts need to be cleaned up throughout the show. This can mean stopping the show so the track crew can remove a car or its parts, push down hoods, or sweep the dirt. It's a hassle and one that delays the show.
The attention span of a human is a lot different these days. It's really sensory overload with anything that's shoved in people's faces. And most of the time, if you lose their attention after 30 seconds or if you have dead time in a show, you're going to bury their phones in their faces.
Another reason for messing with crushed cars throughout the show is to remove sharp edges that may cut tires during competition. Modern monster truck tires, specifically BKTs, are made of thinner material than tires of the past, and simply can't take as much of a beating from the countless sharp edges found in crushed cars.
Be careful in these cars. I got these really soft tires and I don't want to put any more cuts in my tires. Right here is a very good example of what I'm talking about. I did this yesterday. These are new tires and I'm trying to take care of them, but it's so hard to take care of them out here on these cars. It's like driving over razor blades, guys. So
in addition to debris found on the track, plastic and thin metal parts also make modern vehicles crush too easily. Some of the promoters I talked to mention that modern vehicles only last 1 or 2 hits before the rear end of the car gives way. Once that happens, it's not a straight ramp anymore and can launch a truck sideways. You can see this pretty obviously here, where the first truck to hit this car launches straight forward, but nearly every time after, the truck was launched hard to the left. This is because the rear of a traditional sedan is typically a hollow trunk, whereas the front is densely packed with engine components. In addition, at some venues, especially those with asphalt or concrete floors, there's not always something to keep the cars in place while being crushed. This means the crushed cars move and sometimes get flipped upside down as the truck hits them. This can also put the truck in an awkward position. The point here is, crushed cars can be very unpredictable in how they launch a truck into the air. This is a problem for a few reasons. At smaller venues, trucks being unexpectedly shot towards the crowd or crew in such close proximity poses another obvious safety issue. And there's been some close calls before. In addition, trucks can cause property damage if they're launched off to the side too much at venues where the obstacles are placed near the edge of the track.
I think that the quality of car manufacturing degraded, and that gave you less control for a truck's trajectory. Each time a car crushes, it's going to crush differently. You know, different models of cars, different types of cars crush differently in the trunk areas or the hood areas. And so I think what happened is you go into these spaces that a lot of people are going into, and there's no room for error already. So I think car quality probably led to track changes.
Also, when a monster truck lands sideways or otherwise awkwardly, it puts a lot of stress on the truck's tires, suspension, and axle. This inevitably breaks parts on the truck and leads to missing competitions or even entire shows while the crew works to fix the truck. While monster trucks are built much stronger than they used to be, this is still an issue as monster truck teams run schedules that have them performing multiple shows a weekend at each venue they visit, and oftentimes for many weeks and sometimes months on end. This means there's not much time to source replacement parts and repair broken trucks, especially when the team has to spend time traveling from show to show. In order to put on a show, the monster trucks need to be in working order, and crushed cars can put that at a greater risk. Beyond the weaker construction of modern vehicles, the types of vehicles produced in the past 10 to 25 years is also a problem. Monster trucks are about 12 feet wide, therefore the cars they crush need to be more than 12 feet long, preferably in the 15 to 16 foot range so the driver can easily hit the car with both front wheels. The cars also need to be roughly symmetrical to give the best chance of launching the truck straight into the air. Large, regularly shaped sedans fit this bill perfectly and are what monster trucks crush the most. Sedans produced in the 60s and 70s were both long enough and symmetrical. As the decades went on though, sedans became smaller as compact and subcompact vehicles became more popular. By the late 90s, smaller vehicles like the Geo Metro and Ford Escort were becoming more common. These cars were simply too short to make good monster truck obstacles out of. In addition, car companies slowly began producing more vehicles classified as light trucks. This includes pickup trucks, SUVs, minivans, cube cars, plus many hatchbacks and crossovers. This was done for compliance with modern vehicular emission laws, and I'll link an article in the description with a detailed explanation of why. Anyway, notice that most vehicles classified as light trucks aren't symmetrical, and they're generally taller than a traditional sedan. Their shape and size makes them much less versatile as a crush car. In other words, they're just not as crushable. I could also talk about unibody versus body-on-frame cars in the Cash for Clunkers program, but for that I'll point you to California Monster Truck's video on this subject. He did a great job explaining how these topics had an effect on the monster truck industry, and I really recommend you watch his video too. As the types of vehicles being manufactured changed over time, the supply at junkyards decades later has changed in tandem.
Now Ford Tauruses in the 90s are almost gold mines because you just don't find a lot of larger cars that are going to take the hits.
Finding an abundance of large sedans to crush has become more difficult, time-consuming, and therefore less financially feasible over the years. On the topic of finances, pretty much everything has increased in price over the past few years. Used cars are certainly no exception, and that means junk car prices have increased too. In addition, labor costs have risen, and there's a lot of labor in getting crushed cars from the junkyard to a condition ready to be crushed on the track. First, a vendor that can provide junk cars has to be located, and once a deal is reached, the vehicles have to be transported to the venue. At a minimum, most promoters remove the windows and blow out the tires, though sometimes other parts like the headlights might be removed too. Then, once the show is over, the cars and debris they left behind have to be removed from the track and taken back to the junkyard. That's a lot of labor in just transporting and preparing the cars. Between labor and the raw cost of purchasing cars, crushing vehicles has become a lot less financially viable over the years. Switching gears, let's talk about monster truck competition itself. There's a debate over whether monster trucks are a sport or entertainment, and honestly that could be a topic for a whole nother video. While the debate is still open, it seems like over the past decade the industry has been trying to present itself as more of a sport. Now, a key aspect to the legitimacy of any sport is fairness across competition. This means the playing field should be the same for all competitors. With crush cars, however, the playing field isn't necessarily fair. Crush cars crush. By their nature, they change throughout the course of competition. The first competitor will always have fresh cars to hit, but the obstacles get more crushed and smashed down as the competition continues. The point is, the track isn't even for each competitor, and this is seen by some as unfair. In my opinion, is this a dire issue in the world of monster trucks? No. But this is a knock to the fairness of monster truck competition, which delegitimizes it as a true sport. The obstacles replacing crush cars change much less over the course of competition, making the course more akin to a tennis court or a football field that remains uniform for all competitors. Event promoters have been dealing with these problems for years now and have slowly phased in some methods to curb these issues. Some promoters place tarps under the cars to catch the debris that falls off of them. This is common practice and definitely helps, but it's far from perfect as plenty of debris usually still ends up in the dirt. When a junkyard delivers a vehicle that's too small or awkwardly shaped, the track builder may place it in the middle of a set so the trucks aren't launching off of it. Monster Jam and some other promoters sometimes smash down the roofs of their crush cars to make obstacles more uniform and therefore predictable. These ideas also help, but they're not a perfect solution either. County fair shows sometimes use leftover demolition derby vehicles. They're cheap and have most of the plastic parts already removed, but oftentimes crumple too easily since so much of the vehicle has been stripped away. I've even seen a show where the two racing lane obstacles had the exact same cars in each lane. This could be considered a more fair way to crush cars in competition, but it would be impractical if not impossible to do this at every show. Some promoters have tried using expanding foam or bagged cement to stiffen up the rear of their crush cars and stop them from collapsing so easily, but to little avail. Many of these issues are a result of iron walling a car, which is when a monster truck crushes a car head-on with no ramp. Some promoters have started building crush car obstacles where the truck doesn't iron wall the cars. Placing crush cars on top of other obstacles so the vehicles still get crushed is one way of accomplishing this. Building small dirt ramps in front of the obstacle is also common and serves the added benefit of keeping the crush car set from moving. Alternatively, some promoters use concrete, wooden logs, or even metal ramps. To keep small parts out of the dirt, sometimes the promoter may fully encase the crush cars in dirt so the trucks don't really crush the vehicle but rather jump or drive over it. Oftentimes this is the case with bus obstacles, and Monster Jam has been doing this ever since their 2019 announcement.
When the cars are on site, they're in one area, they're already pre-prepped, so there's no glass on the ground, there's no fluids that leak out. You build them into the track, you do what you need to do based on venue requirements to keep them clean during the show.
Each of these methods solves one or two problems created by crushing cars, but none solve them all. This is why promoters have begun using alternatives to crush cars. The main ones are concrete barriers, tires, including the 8-pack ramp, and sometimes just dirt ramps. I should note that these aren't perfect either. Concrete barriers can be unforgiving on trucks as they have literally no give. And so long trucks are jumping in the air, there's always a chance the driver can lose control. The promoter has to weigh their options, and at some shows these are better options than crushing cars, whether it's for safety, financial, or competitive concerns. In January 2011, rookie driver Scott Buteau balanced his monster truck up on its front wheels. This wasn't the first time this happened, but this time it caught the attention of the monster truck community, and he won Monster Jam's Wow Factor of the Year award for it. Nearly 4 years later, Cody Saucier would revive that move at the inaugural More Monster Jam event and spark a revolution in monster trucks. Within a few years, drivers were mastering highly skilled maneuvers like stoppies, moonwalks, poppers, bicycles, and combinations thereof. These moves took the industry by storm, and at the perfect time too. Monster Jam had just started reducing crush cars to their events, and the previous spectacle of destruction and carnage was quickly replaced with the new spectacles of skillful and balanced driving, plus the barrage of backflips and crazy crashes or saves Monster Jam is known for. It's a classic chicken and egg scenario. Did the lack of crush cars lead to these new moves becoming popularized, or did these new moves lead to the decline of crush cars?
I think it's a blend of both. It's a conundrum, really. But I think car quality probably led to, track changes. Alternatively, and so as the sport evolves, then you've got to stay on the forefront of what else can we do with these things. And as driver safety evolved and shock technology evolved, truck safety evolved, trucks could do bigger things. As the technicality and driver detail really improved, then so did the tricks, and so did the balancing acts. And so I think it's a blend of those two things. I think the industry progressed beyond them, but I also think that the industry was also trying to get ahead of cars going down in a quality sense, but also trying to do the next cool thing.
Over the past 9 years, more and more drivers across the industry have added these moves to their repertoire. Anymore, most monster truck shows have at least one driver willing to attempt a stoppie or popper, and the audience tends to cheer for these moves. They're daring, risky, and when done successfully, genuinely impressive. Most monster truck shows simply don't need crush cars to satisfy their audience anymore. The casual fans and first-timers, who make up the vast majority of any monster truck audience, are captivated by the new generation of monster truck stunts. Dirt ramps and other obstacles that don't move or give way are generally best for these kinds of moves. Some drivers can do nose wheelies off of crush cars, but given all the other reasons mentioned in this video, it plainly makes sense for some promoters to shift their focus away from crush cars and focus on what the next generation of trucks and drivers can do.
So I think that's also why the industry's progressed beyond just cars and standard shows. You've got to captivate people, and outside of that top 1 to 5% of people that are going to return no matter what, you've got a whole batch of new customers that you've got to entertain that see one standard on TV, that want to see that in their hometown in a small to mid market.
This gives the audience something fresh they may not have seen much of before and are more likely to remember. The three-point shot has not always been a part of professional basketball. It was first introduced into the NBA in 1979, but didn't immediately take over the sport. At first, it was seen as a gimmick and not given much thought. Over time, though, new talent that grew up with the three-point shot began perfecting it. Players like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson began to change the way the game was played, and increasingly over the 2010s, the three-pointer became a much more crucial part of the game. Professional basketball evolved. Now, defense is given much less thought than it used to be in favor for an inflated offense that can consistently drill threes. Of course, this has come with its critics, saying this isn't the right way to play the game. People are still holding on to the old way the game was played. There's nothing wrong with that, but it makes for a debate about whether professional basketball is headed in the right direction or not. I see this happening with monster trucks too. Crush cars have been a part of the industry since the very beginning. Literally, the very beginning. It's hard to part ways with something so deeply ingrained into something you care about. That's why this trend of less crush cars has critics, and mostly from long-time or die-hard fans. To be honest, I get their frustration. I grew up with crush cars at every show I went to, and when I see a show without crush cars, it just feels like something's missing. People want what they can't have, and I, along with many others from the monster truck fanbase, am no different. But I think back to the NBA. I liken the nose wheelies and bicycles and whatnot to the three-point shot. Right now, the new generation of monster truck stunts are somewhere around here. The moves have been invented, but they're not an essential aspect of the industry yet. Many of the drivers revolutionizing monster trucks are in their 20s, some in their teens. They still have new moves to create and old ones to perfect. That's only going to bring more attention to monster trucks, increasing the fan base and benefiting the industry as a whole. And monster trucks aren't done evolving. Just a few months ago, Monster Jam unveiled their new MonsterGon obstacle for concrete floor shows. If the MonsterGon can eliminate the need to transport dirt into arenas and cut costs in doing so, then it will likely become the new norm. The monster truck industry is ever evolving and always has been. There will always be something new, innovative, or revolutionary on the horizon, and oftentimes that means phasing something out from the past. Crushing and smashing vehicles is awesome. If you're watching this video, there's a good chance that that's what made you a monster truck fan. That's the case with me, and that's why I hate to say that car crushing is going away. It's not the fault of any one person or group of people. Auto manufacturing methods have changed, monster truck tires have changed, the ability of the trucks and drivers have changed, and the wants of the audience have changed. All of these point to a future where monster trucks slowly move away from crushing cars. The history of car crushing isn't going anywhere though. From pop culture references like Apple Music playlist cover art, to the most iconic moments in the history of the industry, it's obvious that monster trucks will always be associated with smashing junk vehicles. I'll admit that some dirt obstacle shows are kinda lame, but the future isn't all doom and gloom. Monster truck technology and driver skill are constantly improving, and new moves, tricks, and stunts will continue to captivate fans for decades to come. If you're still stuck on crush cars, check out these tours, which at the time of recording still crush cars at all of their events. Go and enjoy some classic monster truck car crushing while you can. Crush cars are still around today, but one day they may be just a relic of the past. I want to thank Caden Barry and the others who provided me with information on this topic. Sometimes it feels like there's little transparency between those who pull the strings in this industry and the fans, so I greatly appreciate their openness. Once again, don't forget to watch California Monster Truck's video if you haven't already. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll be back very soon with another episode of Monster Docs.